Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to get into a specific topic. This topic for today is titled Men Need to Be at Their Age Level in Terms of Success, or otherwise they will feel juvenile around their peers. Now, essentially, we're going to break down what that means. Essentially, what happens is that if a guy is not at his success level that is appropriate for his age, he's not going to feel at the level of the peers that are. So, to use an example on this, I had a friend of mine who, amongst his group friends of work friends, he would feel less than them because being in the age range of about 40, he was a male, and this is really big for men. So I'm speaking on the topic of men. I can't really speak on how this affects women, but I definitely know for men. So this particular friend, the rest of the people he was talking around, his groups of friends at work, whether it was women or men, they were at a stage in their life where they owned a home, maybe they owned multiple homes, or maybe they had a business, whatever the case was. They had kids and this and that, or some of them didn't. But the kids part, I get it. That may not necessarily be in the cards at that moment, but your success is something that you have a little bit more control over in terms of if you have a decent job, you put your money into things that make you feel like you're at the right stage you have to be. So just to sound off a few things, not to say that you have to be at this specific level, but generally when you're from the age of 20 to 25, you're just starting your career job, and that's fine. That's all you need. Somewhere within that time frame, you would have had a car, whether it's an older used car, maybe it's a newer car, it doesn't matter. But it's just you have some wheels, you're able to drive around. You're everything you need to be at that time, generally speaking. Somewhere between 25 and 30, you could be the kind of person who buys a home. If you do, you to some people you might be considered early, some people might be considered on time, but nonetheless, I would say a house or some kind of ownership of property would come into play really from 25 to 35. I'll give it a 10-year range that someone kind of should really have that in terms of. I'm not saying people necessarily you have to have that, but as far as men, as far as this day and age, it's a good look, especially when you're comparing to your peers who you got to understand something. Sometimes the motivation for why people do that is because they have kids. But if you don't have kids, and this was the situation with that friend that I knew, they didn't have kids. So the motivation wouldn't have been as there to do that. But nonetheless, if you don't have those things, even if you don't have kids, if you don't motivate to have that, you're still going to feel out of place with your peers. So I would definitely give that range for that. Then somewhere within that 35 to like 45 range, you should definitely have like a mass of savings, retirement, something that is going to take you to the next stage of your life without having to physically work. And that's the general things I would say that you got to kind of have there. If a person's like, maybe maybe you said you weren't going to own property, but you said I have a bunch of money where I saved up and I could have bought property, but instead my plans are to travel or my plans to buy something when I retire, but I have the money there. At least you could speak on that and speak to that kind of plan. You don't want to be the kind of person where, say, about 40 years old, you don't have no savings, you don't have a house. And what happens is, and I've seen this before, when people start talking in that level of conversation where they start saying things like, okay, a group of people having a conversation, maybe there's a couple of girls in the conversation, a couple of guys in the conversation, they all start saying, yeah, sometimes on the weekend, oh man, I got to mow my lawn, taking out the garbage on the weekend or snowing, I got a shovel, whatever the case is. And, you have this one individual who's like, I don't own a home, so I can't even speak on that. Or even say, um, some people who, like I said, you can't really get on the whole kids thing, but nonetheless, sometimes people might even have like nephews and nieces that they're very active in their life, and you might have that one guy who's like that bachelor who's not doing that. He can't even really speak on that either. Or at least when you get to a certain age range, you say, yeah, I got a plan set. So maybe you're like, I put away a lot of money because when I'm done here, I'm going to be moving. I'm moving wherever it is, and I'm going to go and buy a house there. Maybe I want to travel, this and that, but I have everything ready. I got a plan. And you can speak on that. At least you could speak on why you don't have something because you have another plan. But when you're those people who can't really speak on it, what happens is, I notice a lot of guys will fall into a more juvenile state of feeling, meaning they feel less than their peers. Their peers say, we'll go with the age range of 40. Their peers are having a conversation, they feel like a little kid next to them. And what happens is it starts to even affect the way not only do they let someone talk to them or where they are at inside the conversation, affects their confidence. It even starts affecting the people that they want to target or go after or whatever the case is. Even in the dating world. Now, for example, I understand most men prefer younger women, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yet, there's a difference between you prefer someone younger, but you feel like you're more dominant than them because you're 40, maybe they're 30, and you're like, I have this presence of I own things. I'm at the height of my life. I'm this and that. Versus when you don't have much and you feel alienated from your peers just off the fact you feel like you aren't at their level, then when you do go speak to someone who's younger than you actually feel at their level and you talk to them not from a perspective of I'm higher than you on the totem pole based on what I've achieved, but you start viewing them as your equal. And then now it creates this kind of, I don't want to say disconnect, but it creates this aspect where it's like you're not as confident as you should be because now you're mixing and mingling with younger people as if they're your equals, and the people who are your peers, you are feeling inferior to. So just wanted to make note of that and how that affects people. I definitely want to say this can cause people to become a lot more submissive in their years, especially if you are trying to build your confidence from a young age. Part of that is maintaining the level that you're supposed to be at of quote unquote success for the age that you are at. There's always like milestones that people should be reaching. And some of them is simply being at the level of your peers. Now, that's not to say there's a specific timeline for everyone, but generally speaking, you can say that invisible timeline is where your peers are at. If you're in a town where none of your peers are there, by all means, if you're not at that level, it is what it is. You're not going to feel that way amongst that crowd. And that, I'm not going to get into the topic whether to say, if it's you should be or shouldn't be, it's wrong that you're not. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to say the line as a minimum should be wherever your peers are based on where it is you live and where you frequent. If if everyone around you is at a certain level, you can't be the only one who is not there. And so I've seen even with my core collection of friends that I had growing up, we all kept each other at a certain pace. So if one of us was falling off, the rest was like, we got to get there. We got to get to that space. None of us want to be the ones who fall behind. And it's not a negative thing. And it's not. And if you go and try to view it as this, oh, well, no one should have to feel that way. It's almost like being picked on. It's this and that, or whatever the case is. Not that someone's actively doing it to you, but it's what you feel. If you view that way, you're not going to succeed in life. The tough rule of life is there are hard lines that you have to be at, markers in life that you have to be at, regardless. And though you might want to say, I don't want to be there, you have to. And that's the very reason why a lot of people will start feeling a certain way when they're around peers that are more advanced to them. With that being said, you guys, as always, guys, like, share, subscribe, comment, and you guys take care. Be safe out there. I'll catch you guys in the next video.